"Don't take it off. Please don't," the giant mail-order bride begged. The rancher did. He froze. $65. That's what a mail-order bride cost in 1883. That's what the rancher paid for someone to cook, to clean, to help raise a daughter he couldn't manage alone. The advertisement promised strong Norwegian woman, good temperament, willing worker. It didn't mention she'd be 6 feet tall. It didn't mention she'd arrive half-dressed because the other passengers had stolen her clothes as a joke. It didn't mention she'd be clutching medicinal leaves to her chest like they were made of diamonds. For 2 weeks she worked like 3 men, never complained, never asked for anything except one thing: don't touch the leaves. But shame has a way of eating at a man. Shame of what the neighbors say, shame of what the town thinks. So he grabbed them one morning and tore them away. "You're making us a spectacle," he said. The leaves fell. She stood there, arms at her sides, completely exposed, and the rancher saw something that made his blood run cold. Not skin, not scars. Something worse. The moment a human being realizes they're worth exactly $65 and nothing more. But let's go back. Back to the day she arrived. Back to when the dust was still settling and hope hadn't died yet. The stagecoach came on a Tuesday afternoon. Jacob Stern stood outside the general store with his daughter Lily tucked against his leg. The child was 4 years old, blonde braids, gap in her front teeth. She'd been asking about the new mama for weeks. Jacob told her to hush, told her not to get excited, told her that sometimes things don't turn out the way you expect. He had no idea how right he was. The coach door opened. What stepped out wasn't a woman. Not to the people of Redemption Falls. It was a giant. 6 feet 3 inches of raw muscle and shame, wearing nothing but a cotton slip and clutching a bundle of green leaves over her chest like a baby clutches a blanket. Her blonde hair hung loose and tangled down her back. Her feet were bare, cut and bleeding from the journey. Her eyes were the color of a winter sky, pale and empty. The town went silent. Then someone laughed. Then everyone laughed. Jacob felt his face burn. He'd paid good money. Saved for 8 months. Sold his best horse. All for this. All for a woman who looked like she could break him in half and couldn't even keep her clothes on for the trip. "Papa," Lily whispered, "why is the lady so big?" Jacob didn't answer. He just walked forward, hat in his hands, jaw tight with humiliation. The woman stood there watching him approach. She didn't lower her eyes, didn't apologize, just stood there like a mountain that couldn't be moved. "You're Ingrid Larson?" he said. She nodded once. "Where are your things?" She looked down at the leaves in her hands. This, her English was broken, heavy with an accent that made every word sound like a struggle. Jacob glanced at the stagecoach driver. The man shrugged. Other passengers said she came aboard like that. Didn't have nothing else. Jacob turned back to Ingrid. "You came all the way from Norway with just leaves?" "They take dress," she said quietly. "They take bag. They laugh. Say I too big for clothes anyway. Say America not want giants." Her voice cracked on the last word. "I keep only this. From my mother. Medicine leaves. For heart." Jacob stared at her. At this massive woman clutching weeds like they were gold. At the raw vulnerability in her eyes. At the way her hands trembled, even though the rest of her looked strong enough to pull a plow. For a second, something moved in his chest. Something like pity. Something like shame for the shame he felt. Then he looked around, saw the stares, saw the smirks, saw old Mrs. Henderson whispering to her daughters, saw the men at the saloon pointing and laughing, saw his whole town, watching him claim this spectacle as his. The feeling died. "Get in the wagon," he said. Ingrid walked forward. Each step made people move back like she was something dangerous. Lily reached up and took her father's hand, suddenly afraid. Jacob lifted his daughter into the wagon first, then gestured for Ingrid to climb up. She moved like someone who'd been kicked too many times. Careful, slow, expecting pain. She sat in the back of the wagon, those leaves still pressed to her chest, and looked straight ahead at nothing. Jacob climbed into the driver's seat, snapped the reins. The wagon lurched forward. The town watched them go, their laughter carrying on the wind like smoke. They rode in silence. The Montana sun beat down without mercy. Dust kicked up from the wheels and coated everything. Lily kept turning around to stare at Ingrid. The big woman never looked back. just kept her eyes on the horizon, her lips moving silently. Jacob realized she was praying. In Norwegian, words he couldn't understand, but recognized anyway because they sounded like every prayer he'd ever heard. Desperate, pleading, alone. "You got a name besides Larson?" he finally asked. "Ingrid, I'm Jacob. This is Lily." "Hello, Lily," Ingrid said softly. Her voice changed when she spoke to the child. Became gentle, became almost pretty. Lily didn't answer, just buried her face in her father's side. Ingrid's jaw tightened. She turned back to the horizon. The ranch appeared an hour later, small, weathered, the paint long gone from the house. The barn leaning like it was tired. Fences broken in a dozen places. This was what $65 bought. A half-broken man with a half-broken ranch and a child who needed a mother. Jacob stopped the wagon. "This is it." Ingrid looked at the house. At the fields, at the emptiness, stretching in every direction. Something flickered across her face. Not disappointment. Something worse, recognition, like she'd expected exactly this. Like she'd known all along that hope was a lie people told to keep moving. "You'll sleep in the barn until we're properly married," Jacob said. "Tomorrow we'll go to town, see the minister. Make it legal." Ingrid nodded. "There's a well out back. You can wash up. I'll bring you something to wear that's more appropriate." She looked down at herself. At the thin slip, at the leaves. "I work first." "It's almost dark. I work," she said again. Not asking, stating, Jacob studied her. "The fence by the north pasture needs mending. Posts are rotting through. If you can manage that before sundown, there's supper after." Ingrid stood, climbed down from the wagon, still holding those leaves. She looked at the fence line in the distance, then back at Jacob. "I need—" "What?" She held up the leaves. "Where I put, safe." Jacob felt his irritation rise. "They're just leaves. Please." Her voice broke on the word. "Where I put safe." He sighed, pointed to the barn. "There's a shelf inside. Top corner. Nothing up there but dust." Ingrid walked to the barn. Lily watched her go, eyes wide. "Papa, why does she talk funny?" "She's from far away." "Why is she so big?" "That's just how God made her." "Why doesn't she have clothes?" Jacob didn't have an answer for that one. Just lifted Lily down and carried her inside. Through the window, he watched Ingrid place those leaves on the shelf, like she was laying down something sacred. She stood there for a long moment, one hand on the dried plants, her lips moving in that silent prayer again. Then she turned, walked to the fence line and started working. No tools, just her hands. Pulling rotting posts from the ground like they were twigs. Lifting new ones into place like they weighed nothing. Moving with the kind of steady, relentless strength that came from a lifetime of being told you were only worth what you could carry. By the time the sun set, she'd finished the entire fence. Jacob stood on the porch, staring. It should have taken 3 men 2 days. She walked back to the barn, her hands bleeding, her body covered in dust and sweat. Didn't ask for water, didn't ask for food, didn't ask for anything. Just climbed into the barn and closed the door behind her. That was day 1. For 2 weeks it continued. Ingrid worked from dawn until dark. Fixed the roof. Cleared the field. Hauled water. Chopped wood. Did the work of 10 men and never spoke unless spoken to. She ate what Jacob gave her, slept in the barn. And every night before bed, she'd climb up to that shelf and touch those leaves like they were the only thing keeping her alive. Lily started following her around. The child was curious, the way children are. Would watch Ingrid lift things no woman should be able to lift. Would ask questions in that innocent, brutal way kids have. "Why don't you live in the house?" "Why don't you talk more?" "Why are your hands so big?" Ingrid would answer softly, kindly in her broken English. And Jacob noticed something. When Lily was around, Ingrid smiled. It was small. It was sad. But it was real. The town noticed too. Noticed that the Stern Ranch was being rebuilt by a giant woman in a borrowed dress. Noticed that Jacob never walked beside her when they came to town for supplies. Noticed that she'd stand outside while he shopped, holding those leaves, waiting like a dog. They'd whisper loud enough for her to hear. Unnatural. Poor Jacob, stuck with that. Imagine paying good money for something like that. Ingrid never reacted. Just stood there, waiting, holding her leaves. But Jacob saw it. saw the way her shoulders would tighten, saw the way she'd press those leaves harder against her chest, saw the way something in her eyes died a little more each time, and he felt it too. The shame, the stares, the way men would slap him on the back and say, "Better you than me, friend." The way women would look at Ingrid with something between pity and disgust. It ate at him, that shame, like acid, like rot, until one morning, standing in his kitchen watching her work through the window, something in Jacob's stern snapped. She was by the well, washing clothes, still holding those leaves tucked under one arm, still protecting them even while working. And he suddenly hated those leaves, hated what they represented, hated that she cared more about dried plants than about making him look like less of a fool. He walked outside, crossed the yard, stood over her. "Put those down," he said. Ingrid looked up, confusion in her eyes. "I work. Leaves not bother. They bother me. Put them down." She clutched them tighter. "Please, I keep safe. I'd not lose them, Ingrid." His voice went cold. "You're making us a spectacle. Every time we go to town, every time someone sees you holding those things, like you're touched in the head. I'm done with it. Put them down." "No," her voice shook. "These are my mother. These are my home, please. I ask nothing else. Only this." Jacob reached for them. Ingrid pulled back. He grabbed her wrist. "Don't take it off," she whispered. Her eyes filled with tears. "Please don't." He yanked. The leaves scattered, fell into the dirt like broken wings. Ingrid dropped to her knees, tried to gather them, her hands shaking so badly she could barely hold them. Some were torn, some were already blowing away in the wind, and Jacob stood there, watching her scramble in the dust, and felt nothing but relief that the spectacle was finally over, until she stopped moving, just knelt there, leaves in her hands, and looked up at him. Not with anger, not with hatred, with something so much worse. Acceptance, the kind that comes when someone finally confirms what you've always suspected about yourself. That you don't matter, that you're not worth protecting, that you're exactly as worthless as they said you were. She stood slowly, let the leaves fall, stood there with her arms at her sides, completely exposed in a way that had nothing to do with clothes. "I work now," she said flatly. Turned away, walked toward the field. Jacob stood there, leaves scattered at his feet, and for the first time since she arrived, he actually looked at her. Really looked, at the way her shoulders curved inward, at the way she walked like every step hurt, at the way she'd become something less than human right in front of him, and he felt something cold settle in his chest. Not guilt. Not yet. Just the first whisper of understanding that maybe, just maybe, he'd done something he couldn't undo. 3 days passed. Ingrid didn't speak unless spoken to, didn't look at Jacob, didn't go near the barn shelf where the leaves used to be. She just worked, ate, slept, worked again, like a machine that had finally accepted its purpose. Lily noticed first. "Papa, why doesn't the big lady smile anymore?" Jacob didn't answer. Just told his daughter to finish her breakfast, but the child was right. Something had changed. Ingrid moved differently now, heavier, slower, like the weight she carried wasn't fence posts and water buckets anymore. It was something invisible, something crushing. The 4th morning, Jacob woke to the smell of smoke. Not breakfast smoke. Danger smoke. He ran outside, the barn. Flames crawling up the dry wood like hungry fingers. Black smoke pouring into the early dawn sky. Lily. He spun toward the house, empty. He'd put her to bed. She should be sleeping. Unless... His heart stopped. She'd been playing in the barn yesterday, hiding in the hay, making secret forts. Lily. He ran toward the flames. Heat hit him like a wall. The door was already burning. He couldn't get through. Couldn't breathe. Couldn't think past the screaming in his head that his daughter was inside. Then something moved beside him. Ingrid. Still in her nightdress. Hair loose. Eyes locked on the barn. "She's inside," Jacob choked out. "Lily's inside." Ingrid didn't hesitate. She ran straight into the fire. Jacob tried to follow. The heat drove him back. He fell to his knees, screaming his daughter's name, helpless. Watching the barn collapse inward, seconds felt like hours. Then a shape emerged from the smoke. Ingrid, massive, unstoppable, her nightdress burning, her hair singed, her arms wrapped around a small blonde child. She stumbled, fell, rolled in the dirt, with Lily protected beneath her body. Smothering the flames on both of them, Jacob scrambled over, pulled his daughter free. Lily was crying, terrified, but alive, breathing, whole. He crushed her against his chest, sobbing. Behind him, Ingrid lay in the dirt. Not moving. Ingrid? His voice cracked. She didn't respond. He turned, saw her back. Raw red burns from her shoulders to her waist, blistered, bleeding, the kind of burns that kill you slowly if they don't kill you fast. No. No, no, no. Jacob dropped beside her. Ingrid, stay with me. Her eyes opened, barely. Lily? She's safe. You saved her. You... His voice broke. Why did you do that? Ingrid's lips moved. So quiet he almost didn't hear it. Because I am not worth $65. But she is worth everything. Then her eyes closed. Jacob screamed for help. Screamed until his throat was raw. Carried her into the house. Laid her on his own bed. Sent for the doctor. Sat beside her while Lily clung to his neck, crying, not understanding why the big lady wouldn't wake up. The doctor came. Looked at the burns. Looked at Jacob. Shook his head. Best you can do is make her comfortable. She won't last the night. Jacob sent him away. Sat beside Ingrid's bed, and for the first time in 2 weeks, he cried. Not for shame. Not for pride. For what he'd done. For what he'd destroyed, for the woman who'd given everything to save his daughter after he'd taken everything from her. He reached for her hand. Those massive, burned, broken hands. Held them gently. I'm sorry, he whispered. God forgive me, I'm sorry. Outside, the barn burned to ash. Inside, Ingrid Larson fought for every breath, and Jacob Stern finally understood what it meant to be worth less than nothing. Ingrid didn't die that night. Or the next. She hung on with the same stubborn strength she'd used to pull fence posts and carry water. But she didn't wake up either. Just lay there, breathing shallow, skin fever-hot, hovering somewhere between alive and gone. Jacob didn't leave her side. Lily brought him water, brought him food he didn't eat, asked questions he couldn't answer. Is the big lady going to heaven, Papa? Not if I can help it. Why is she sleeping so long? Because she's tired, baby. She's been tired for a very long time. On the 3rd day, Ingrid's fever broke. Her eyes opened, confused at first, then focused. She saw Jacob slumped in the chair beside her bed, unshaven, hollow-eyed, holding her hand like he was afraid she'd disappear. Lily? Her voice was sandpaper. She's fine. She's perfect. Because of you. Ingrid tried to sit up. Pain ripped through her. She gasped, fell back. Don't move, Jacob said quickly. The burns need time. She looked at him. Really looked. Saw something in his face she hadn't seen before. Something raw and broken. You cry? He nodded. Didn't try to hide it. I thought you were going to die. I thought I was going to lose you before I could... He stopped. Swallowed hard. Before I could tell you I'm sorry. Ingrid stared at him, silent. The leaves, Jacob continued, voice shaking. I had no right. They weren't mine to take. They were all you had left of home, of your mother, of who you were before. He gestured helplessly. Before me. Before this place. Before everything turned you into something you weren't supposed to be. I was always this, Ingrid said quietly. Too big, too strong, too much. Even in Norway I was too much. No. Jacob leaned forward. You were exactly enough. I was just too blind and too proud to see it. You worked harder than any person I've ever known. You never complained, never asked for anything. And I treated you like you were something shameful, like you were less than human. His voice cracked. You saved my daughter. You ran into fire for a child who wasn't even yours. You almost died for her. After everything I did to you. After I destroyed the one thing you asked me to protect. Tears ran down Ingrid's face. I dropped the leaves myself. I choose. For Lily, I know. That's what kills me. I took them from you in cruelty. You let them go in love. That's the difference between us. Jacob pressed her hand to his forehead. I don't deserve your forgiveness. I don't deserve you in this house. But I'm begging you, don't leave. Not yet, not until you're healed. Let me do this one decent thing. Let me take care of you the way I should have from the beginning. Ingrid studied his face. This broken man who'd bought her like livestock and learned too late what she was worth.
Why you care now?
Because I saved Lily? No. Jacob met her eyes. Because I finally saw what I'd been looking at all along. A woman who crossed an ocean alone, who survived being robbed and mocked and stripped of everything, who worked herself to the bone for a man who couldn't even give her basic dignity, who held on to dried leaves because they were the only thing in the world that said someone, somewhere, had loved you once. His voice dropped to a whisper. You didn't become less when I took those leaves, Ingrid. I did. The room went quiet. Outside, Lily was singing to herself in the kitchen. Inside, two broken people sat in the ruins of what could have been. I want to go home, Ingrid finally said. Jacob's heart dropped. Back to Norway? No, I have no home there. I have no home anywhere. She looked at the ceiling. I want to go where I am not giant, where I am not spectacle, where I am not too much. But there is no such place. There could be. She looked at him. Here, Jacob said. This ranch, this house. It could be home. If we started over, if I spent every day for the rest of my life proving that you matter, that you're not too much, that you're... He stopped, took a breath, that you're exactly what we needed all along. Ingrid closed her eyes. Pretty words. But words are wind. You ashamed of me. Town ashamed of me. This not change because I burn. You're right. Words aren't enough. Jacob stood, walked to the door, stopped. So let me show you instead. He left. Ingrid lay there, confused, exhausted, hurting in ways that had nothing to do with burns. 30 minutes later he returned, carrying something in his arms, something green. Her breath caught. Jacob knelt beside the bed, opened his hands. Leaves, not the ones from before. Those were ash and wind. These were fresh, new, still growing. Carefully potted in an old tin can. I rode to the neighbor's ranch, he said quietly. Old Mrs. Henderson. She's got a herb garden. I described your leaves to her. She said they sound like Nordic healing herbs. Didn't have the exact ones, but she gave me these. Said they're from the same family. Medicinal, used for heart ailments. He set the pot on the bedside table. They're not your mother's leaves. I can never give those back. But maybe, his voice broke, maybe we could grow new ones together. Maybe we could plant something that's ours. Yours and mine and Lily's. Something that says this is home now. Ingrid stared at the small green plant, reached out with trembling fingers, touched the leaves. They were soft, real, growing. Why? She whispered. Because you begged me not to take something from you, and I did it anyway. So now I'm trying to give you something, not to replace what you lost. Nothing can do that, but to show you that I see you, finally, truly, not as the giant, not as the spectacle, as Ingrid, the woman who saved my daughter, the woman who deserves to be planted somewhere and allowed to grow. Ingrid pressed the leaves to her chest, just like before, but different, because this time someone had given them to her, not taken them away. She looked at Jacob through tears. You plant them outside, in garden. I want to see them grow, Jacob smiled, the first real smile since she'd arrived. I'll plant them tomorrow, front of the house, where everyone can see. Where everyone can see, Ingrid repeated. Then softer, I stay for now. Until I heal. It wasn't forgiveness. Not yet, but it was a door left open. And sometimes that's how hope starts. Not with grand gestures, with small green leaves and the promise of tomorrow. Spring came to Montana like a whisper turning into a song. The burns healed. Slowly, painfully, but they healed. Ingrid could walk again. Work again. But Jacob wouldn't let her. Not like before. Not like a machine. He hired help from town, split the work, made sure she rested, made sure she ate at the table, with him, with Lily, like family. The leaves grew. That small plant Jacob brought became 5, then 10. Ingrid planted them in rows along the front of the house, tended them every morning before the sun came up, her hands in the soil, her face peaceful in a way Jacob had never seen. Lily helped, would sit beside Ingrid in the dirt, asking questions, learning Norwegian words for earth and grow and home. The child who'd been afraid of the giant now followed her everywhere, Called her Mama Ingrid without anyone teaching her to. The town noticed. Of course they noticed. Noticed that Jacob Stern walked beside his wife now when they came for supplies. Noticed that Ingrid wore proper dresses he'd bought special, made to fit her. Noticed that she stood tall instead of hunched. Noticed the way Jacob looked at her, not with shame, with something else. Something they didn't have a name for but recognized anyway. Some people whispered. Some people judged. But some people saw a woman who'd run into fire for a child and decided that maybe, just maybe, size didn't matter when the heart was that big. 6 months after the fire, Jacob came home from town with something wrapped in brown paper. Found Ingrid in the garden, her hands deep in soil, humming a Norwegian song. "I have something for you," he said. She looked up, curious, careful, still, not quite sure if gifts were real or if they'd be taken. Away! He handed her the package. She unwrapped it slowly. Inside was a book. The pages worn, the cover faded, but the title clear: Norwegian Folktales and Remedies. Ingrid's hands trembled. "Where you find this?" "Ordered it from back east. Took 3 months to arrive. I thought—" Jacob knelt beside her in the dirt. "I thought maybe you could teach me about your mother's leaves, about the ones she gave you. What they meant, what they healed. I can't bring them back, but maybe if I learn about them, I can understand what I took from you." Ingrid pressed the book to her chest, tears streaming. "You learn Norwegian?" "I'm trying. Lily's better at it than me, but I'm trying." She looked at him, this man who destroyed her and then spent 6 months rebuilding her piece by piece. "Why you do this? You have wife now. I work, I cook. I raise Lily. Why you need more? Because having a wife isn't the same as having a partner. And I don't want you here because you work. I want you here because—" He stopped, took a breath, said the words he'd been too afraid to say. "Because I love you, Ingrid. Not because you're strong. Not because you saved Lily, but because you're kind when the world gave you every reason to be cruel. Because you sing when you think no one's listening. Because you teach my daughter words in a language I don't understand, and it's the most beautiful thing I've ever heard. Because you're not too much. You're exactly right." Ingrid stared at him, silent. Then she did something she hadn't done since the day she arrived. She smiled, full and real and bright as sunrise. "I love you too," she said in Norwegian. Then in English, "I love you too, Jacob Stern." He pulled her close, kissed her forehead, her cheeks, her lips. Right there in the garden, in the dirt, surrounded by leaves that had grown from grief into hope. Lily ran out of the house, saw them, and launched herself into Ingrid's arms. The big woman caught her, held them both. This family she'd earned through fire and pain and the stubborn refusal to disappear. That night, after Lily was asleep, Ingrid and Jacob sat on the porch. The stars spread overhead like diamonds on black velvet. The smell of earth and growing things heavy in the air. "I think about the leaves sometimes," Ingrid said quietly. "The ones from my mother. I think about how I held them so tight because I thought they were all I had. But maybe—" She looked at Jacob. "Maybe she gave them to me, knowing I would let them go someday. Knowing I would find something better to hold on to. What's better than a mother's love? A love you choose. A love you build. A love that grows." She gestured to the garden. "These leaves are not my mother's, but they are mine. Ours, we plant them. We water them. We watch them grow. That is better. Because it is real. Because it is now." Jacob took her hand. Those big, scarred, beautiful hands. "I'm sorry it took me so long to see you. I'm sorry I hide for so long. Afraid to be seen." They sat in silence, comfortable, complete. In the distance, a coyote called. The wind moved through the grass. The leaves rustled. And in that small house on that big empty land, 2 people who'd been broken found out that broken things can heal. That shame can become strength. That what starts as $65 and desperation can become something that looks a whole lot like love. Now, before you go, friend, I need to ask you something. If this story made you feel something, if it made you stop and think about the people you've judged or the times you've been judged, do me a favor. Hit that subscribe button. Turn on the notifications, because there are more stories like this. Stories about people who didn't fit, people who were too much or not enough. People who found home in the last place they expected. And I want to share them with you. Tell me in the comments where you're watching from. What time is it where you are? And have you ever felt like you were too much for the world? Because you're not. You're exactly right. Just like Ingrid. Just like all of us trying to find where we belong. The leaves she held weren't magic. They were just proof that someone somewhere had loved her once. And sometimes that's all we need to keep going. That's all any of us need. So subscribe. Stay with me. And let's find more stories about the broken people who became whole. About the giants who learned to stand tall. About the $65 brides who turned out to be priceless. See you in the next one, friend. The end.